What's up guys, it's Mike for Sim Racing 604. And what if I told you there was a wheel on the market that had wheel, wheelbase, pedals, H-pattern shifter, was compatible with Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and Nintendo Switch, and it retailed for $180 US. Well, that's what I'm doing today. With this PXN V9 wheel, I'm gonna get it unboxed and review it. Let's get into it. All right, so as mentioned, this is the PXN V9 wheel. This is actually my first time opening it up, so curious to see what it's like. 180 bucks, and this was sent to me for review. This, not sure. Okay, table clamps. That's good. I'm not actually sure if you can both table clamp this and hard mount it to a rig, so we'll get that figured out. Here is the wheel and wheelbase. Let's see, we have suction cups. See what those are for. This is the H-pattern shifter. This is a cable, not sure exactly for what, for PlayStation or Xbox One, USB cable. Okay. And finally, of course, the pedals. Double check, nothing else is in there. All right, so let's quickly get this out of its packaging. We'll start with the pedals. As you can see, 3-pedal set, which is pretty impressive actually. Again, it comes with the H-pattern shifter, all for 180 bucks, so very cool. Clutch. I mean, there's no resistance to that brake at all. I can use my pinky finger and depress that and then accelerate. It feels like they all have the exact same amount of resistance, same spring used for each. So that is something to be aware of. And as far as mounting it, what? Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that was a thing. Okay, so it's got a nice little footrest here. And does that expose mounting screws? No, unfortunately. At first look, it doesn't appear that you can actually hard mount this to a rig. So that is unfortunate, but probably okay for a lot of use cases. Here, of course, the wheel and wheelbase has actually got a decent weight to it. Suction cups on the bottom. Again, no way to hard mount this. There doesn't appear to be any screws, but looking at this wheel, pretty nice design. Let's see. Pretty soft paddle shifters here. Not sure if you guys can hear that. It's got an interesting rebound, so I can actually get this to stick to this table maybe. No, this table, the surface isn't right. But anyway, it's got little suction cups on the bottom to mount it to your desk. And then again, these table clamps, which you can use to secure it even better. And it's got a spring in it. So even when it's turned off, it's gonna return to center automatically. Not sure if that's good or bad, actually. I don't think I have any other wheels that can do that. There's a switch at the bottom here, selectable for 270 degrees if it's in the right position, 900 degrees on the left position. In terms of the buttons, it's got, it's very interesting looking. It's got square, triangle, circle, and then something that's an interesting looking, that I'm guessing it's an X, but you can't really see the X. And then printed on the wheel, it's got A, B, X, and Y. And then everything, all the other buttons, or the buttons at least on the side here, are double labeled, so, or triple labeled actually. It's got them numbered, which I actually like. I wish my AccuForce had that, because you don't know what numbers you're pressing. But overall, nice sticky rubber grips here. Actually, this is not bad. This is not bad feeling. I expected a lot less, I'm not gonna lie. There's a decent radius to this wheel. It's about what you'd expect for an entry-level wheel. I could just about get my whole hand in there, which I think makes it the exact same size as the G29. I'll have to double check that. But yeah, overall it looks pretty good. And then quickly have a look at the H-pattern shifter. So the H-pattern shifter actually, the emergency brake is a switch. I would like to see somebody drift with that. That'd be pretty interesting. And then high-low. I'm not actually sure what high-low means. I'll have to look that up in the menu, but an IO switch there for the high-low modes. And then well, actually this isn't a suction cup, but it is a table clamp. And just a plastic screw up here, or a plastic screw rather, and is just labeled PXN V9 shifter. So in terms of the shift action, I mean, it's fairly, you can tell what gear you're in. And reverse is in, over and down. Everything else just slides right in. Yeah, 6 gears plus reverse, not too bad. Feels actually decent. Feels quite similar in action to the G29 shifter, or sorry, the Logitech shifter that works with the G series wheels. And again, a couple little bonus. I don't know why it has a separate USB cable. So coming out of the back of the wheelbase is a single USB connection, and these are RJ11 or RJ12. Looks like an RJ12 connection. Same with the shifter. Now, of course, it plugs into the back. I'll try and get some up-close shots of this for you guys, but there's one slot for the pedals, one slot for the shifter. There's actually a headphone port, which is very interesting, and then it looks like a controller port, so I'm not sure if that's for charging your controller or what, but yeah, very interesting. And you can see in style, it's not dissimilar to the G29. It's got these fake vents here. It doesn't look like it has any exhaust fans or anything like that, so I don't know if cooling is going to be an issue, or it just might not get hot, but yeah, I'm actually surprised. This is a very cool looking set. So I know that's slightly out of frame. I apologize about that, but I'm actually impressed with how this feels. It's obviously got a lot of features missing from what you might be used to if you watch this channel for a while, but 3 pedal set. These are metal. Everything else appears to be plastic. Wheel feels quite nice in its resistance. Shifter feels good. So first impressions, for $180, I'm impressed. It looks like they've got a lot going on here. So yeah, nothing left to do. I'm just going to get this mounted and yeah, take it for a test drive. Let's do that now.
All right, so impressions of driving the PXN V9 wheel, pedal, and shifter set. Well, the first thing you notice is that there's no force feedback. You can add a general rumble, but I didn't choose to do that. And the second thing you notice is that the selectable 270 or 900 degrees of rotation does feel a bit limiting. I've used 540 degrees of rotation for years, so moving to a scenario where I had to choose more or less rotation than I normally would use took some getting used to. But once you get used to the feeling, it's actually pretty good to drive with. Obviously, coming from the world of a direct drive wheel and a load cell brake pedal like I have, this isn't going to blow my mind with its performance, but I was able to drive at roughly the same pace and achieve roughly the same performance in terms of catching slides and overall control of the car with the PXN as I was with my regular gear. And the pedals aren't anything special, and blip shifting was trickier for me. With the pedal spacing being fixed and spaced as they are, but the travel of the pedals was surprisingly smooth, but definitely a stiffer spring for the brake pedal would go a long way. And the shifter is probably the most surprising aspect to the V9. The shift action is easy, and finding the right gear is easy as well. It's not the best I've tried, certainly, but I would put it closer to the Logitech Driving Force shifter than I had gone in expecting. And before I get into my review of the PXN V9, let's talk about some of the key features. The PXN V9 is currently sold through Amazon for $180 US, and that bundle includes the wheelbase, the steering wheel, a 3-pedal set, and a 6+1 H-pattern shifter. Nearly all the visible materials are plastic except the pedal faces, and the V9 is compatible with PlayStation 3, 4, Xbox, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and the Nintendo Switch, and of course PC. The pedals and shifter plug into the wheelbase, and the wheelbase connects to your PC or console via a single USB connection. The set has a companion app called V9 Tools that allows you to switch between modes. It connects to your wheelbase via Bluetooth and has a simple interface to customize your experience with the V9. The wheel has 14 buttons, a D-pad, and 2 paddle shifters. Connections are made at the rear, and because there is no force feedback motor, there is no external power supply required. The set includes a table clamp set and suction cups to get the wheelbase attached to your setup. There is a switch located at the front of the base that allows you to toggle between 270 and 900 degrees of rotation. This engages a physical stop for either mode, so setting it to 270 degrees doesn't allow you to turn the wheel a full rotation. The pedals are a 3-pedal set, and the throttle pedal is slightly larger than the clutch or brake pedal. All 3 pedals offer the same amount of resistance. There's a footrest plate that can be folded out or hidden depending on your preference. There's no threaded holes in either the pedal set or the wheelbase for attaching the units to a cockpit. The shifter offers 6 gears plus reverse and has 2 additional switches, including an emergency brake. The shifter offers a table clamp only for mounting, and the shift knob is labeled with the gearing. Okay, so time for my thoughts on the PXN V9, and I'll start with the good or things I like about this set. The first one is compatibility and ease of use. Having versatility in an entry-level wheelbase is a good thing, especially for those looking to just sort of dip their toes into sim racing rather than spend thousands of dollars diving into the deep end. The modes can be confusing, but in a few minutes I did have my wheel plugged in and set up in Assetto Corsa. I had the wrong mode initially selected, but the app connected right away and I changed the mode easily to get it working. And next in the good category is value. Nothing in this set is the best I own, but for $180 US, it more than delivers. There's a lot of features and frankly a lot of parts that are included for this price. Also, the selectable wheel rotation is a cool thing. If you're trying your hand at something like drifting, being able to bump the rotation up to 900 degrees at the flip of a switch is handy. Or conversely, if you want to try something like a Formula car with a very tight lock-to-lock wheel rotation, you can make it happen in seconds. And lastly, in the good category, the wheel resistance. For some people, not having force feedback is going to be a deal breaker, and I totally get that. But for those who can live without it, the resistance to the wheel is just about perfect, honestly. It's light enough that turning the wheel isn't a chore, but it does have enough resistance to feel like you're actually turning a steering wheel. And in the neutral category, I've got just 2 things. And first is the labeling of the various modes. X input and D input don't really mean anything to anyone. Changing the names to more common driving terms would make the setup of the V9 a lot easier. Also in the neutral category, there's no threaded holes for mounting the V9 onto a rig. I keep this in the neutral category because I'm certain 99 or more % of owners of the V9 will clamp this onto a desk, but in my mind, for the pennies it would cost for PXN to add a few threaded holes, it might allow owners to grow a bit with the gear. And in the bad category, or things I don't like, we'll start with the lack of force feedback. Some of my most popular videos ever are force feedback setting tutorials, so that tells me there's a hunger, if not a need, for force feedback in our sim lives. PXN's credit, general rumble can be added to at least give the impression that your tires are traversing something more textured than a tabletop, but I think all sim racing roads lead to force feedback wheels eventually, so the question to ask before buying this is whether you can do without it. Next is the brake pedal. The pedals are okay overall, but the biggest drop in quality between my regular gear and this PXN V9 is in the brake pedal. Adding a stiffer spring would be almost cost neutral for PXN and would make the pedals feel much better. Also in the bad, the loose feeling of the wheel relative to the wheelbase. It's quite easy to wiggle the wheel. I don't know if this play means it's less susceptible to braking because it can move a bit, or more prone to brake because the connection is weak. Only time will tell, but as of right now, that amount of wiggle worries me a bit. And lastly, in the bad, the size of the shifter arm is too small, given that the shifter is the primary driver for people to choose the PXN over competitors like Hori or the T150. I would expect this to be an area where the V9 sets itself apart, and even though I would argue that the shifter is closer in quality to Logitech than the wheel or pedals, the tiny length of the arm and the tiny shift knob definitely lands it below the driving force. All it would take is another inch or so of the shifter arm and a slightly larger diameter for the shift knob, and this shifter would actually be very impressive. So closing thoughts, and I have to admit this is one of the toughest reviews I've had to do for a while. The list of things on my bad or neutral list honestly could be 10 times as long as I've made it. There are a number of things that I could complain about or would lose out on compared to my AccuForce and Houston belt gear, but nobody is searching for that comparison. We'd never write off the Honda Civic as a bad vehicle because it's slow next to a Ferrari or uncomfortable next to a Bentley. So am I saying that this is the Honda Civic of wheel and pedal sets? Nah, that title belongs to the G29. I know a ton of people that own them and only a tiny percentage that regret buying it. The PXN V9 for me fits into a lower tier. If $200 is your hard budget limit, or if you're just toying with the idea of sim racing and don't want to risk investing in something you might not like, there are very few options I can find that will give you this much at this price. There's used T150s and G29s and a few other less known sim racing wheels for this price or less that will give you force feedback. But if you want to buy new, or you want the H-pattern shifter to complement your wheel and pedals, or don't want to bother with force feedback, it's hard to beat this V9 frankly at the price. Other than compatibility and value, there isn't much that really makes this set stand out, but there's also nothing that made me hate it or dislike driving with it. A few annoyances as I've outlined before, but honestly everything about the PXN V9 felt fine. I'd recommend this set to anyone on a tight fixed budget or someone having no luck in the used market who's looking for sim racing gear that they might use only infrequently. If you don't need an H-pattern shifter, you can look for a used G29 or T150 at roughly the same price. And that's it for the video. The PXN V9 didn't wow me, but it's also a very competent offering at the lower end of the sim racing hardware market. Thanks for watching, and if you found any great deals at this price point, be sure to share it in the comments below.